Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Heal, Nourish, Grow podcast. I am the founder of Heal, Nourish, Grow, CHERYL McColgan, and today I am joined by Mariah Shane, who, as you heard in his bio, is the CEO of a hair health company, but he has kind of made this his passion in life, and he's going to share with us today some insights and things that we can possibly do to help hopefully make our hair a little bit healthier going forward. So welcome, Mariah. Could you just share with everybody kind of your background a little bit and how you got into this field around hair health?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm very happy to be here. Um, so basically, here's how it happened organically, I should say. So just growing up, I'm from California. I'm still in California, uh, and growing up in California, I've always been raised with the philosophy that everything our body needs to survive exists in nature. Like we have survived millions of years of evolution synergistically evolving with nature as we go. So when our bodies are designed to survive, we are designed to live and to thrive. So I've always had the approach that when something's non-optimum with my body, my goal is to make my body strong enough to handle that situation, and that exists in nature. That's always where I go first, is that area. How can I strengthen that area of my body so my body can fix what's going on? Now, hair loss is in my family. Every man in my family is totally bald. I'm thrilled to have what I have because I should be like cue ball bald today. So when my father started losing his hair, um, we were like, oh, he was like, I want to fix this. What's happening? And so we started looking around for remedies. And this was probably the 90s, I'd say, mid 90s in there. So we started looking around for solutions and remedies. Cause we're like, okay, so he's losing his hair and he's trying to fix it. And like everyone else does, and he was kind of panicking and stuff because it's a big deal for, people. And there was nothing there. There was nothing in the natural realm that really was game changing. Like there were lots of stuff like rub an onion on your head and you know little cures like that, but nothing really substantial that was like, this is going to change my hair, this is going to help it. So he went down the drug route, the popular route, the same drugs that were made in the 70s, the same drugs everyone's using today. He went down that route and he started getting sick. He started his body, he started getting very tired. His immune system dropped. He actually started developing breasts because it started altering his hormones. And so he was like, this is not cool. This isn't what I want. And we were all the same, like, no, you gotta stop this. And my mother's from Italy, and so we have cousins in the Lake Como region, and she was just talking to them casually about, life and catching up. And she mentioned what's going on with my father, and they said, well, there's this little pharmacy, it's a little lab they call pharmacy, here that's doing some kind of neat things in this area of hair loss in the natural realm and stuff. And she's like, oh, well, send some to me. So they sent it over, and eventually we became their North American distributors because it worked great, and we're like, oh, this is cool. And so we that was our entrance into the hair loss world. Now, from that point, it was a matter of like, once you're in, then you start exploring and you start like realizing what you actually need and what you actually want. So once we got into it and we became the distributors, then we started studying, and then we started figuring out like, what is this? What's the real issue? What's the real problem? And then once we start looking at like, because once we understood the real problem, we said there's got to be a better solution, because what we had worked, but it wasn't like amazing, but it worked. But we're like, how do we get amazing? How do we get incredible? And that was the question that basically started our journey to where we are today.
That's fascinating. That's so wonderful that you found somebody in the family that had like this natural solution for you. And
Yeah,
then obviously since then, you've done a ton of research and a ton of
right.
studies. So before we go into the like eventually we'll obviously talk about why these ingredients work and kind of what you
Yeah.
discovered along the way,
Mhm.
but what is it that you've learned about just general hair health. So before we even go to hair loss,
Absolutely.
what is it that makes a healthy head of hair? What is the kind of the normal functioning and how it works?
Mhm.
Because I think a lot of people don't give a lot of thought to this, right? Like your hair just
Yeah.
grows out of your head and kind of people take it for granted. But I think it'd be interesting to go into some of the a little bit of the science behind it and kind of your understanding of how hair growth works.
Yeah, totally. And I like to keep things really simple. I don't, because I think any any understanding comes from simplicity. So I just keep things very simple in this area. So when our hair grows, there's three stages. There's a growth, a resting, and a shedding phase. We all have this. It's totally natural. So what happens is the hair starts to grow, and then it stops. And so you get your hair grows, it grows, it grows, then it stops, and that's the resting phase. And what's happening is underneath it, the hair is actually detaching from the follicle, and the new hair is growing, and that new hair starts pushing that old hair out. So that old hair, it looks like it's still growing because it's still in the skin, but it's actually in the shedding phase. And then eventually it falls out and sheds, and a new hair comes out. And that's the continual cycle of hair. Totally natural, totally normal. All mammals have that. Anything with hair has that cycle. The part where it becomes something to pay attention to is when there's all of a sudden more shedding than normal. You start noticing more hair than normal. Now the big underlining factor is nourishing the follicle itself. And generally, that's just done by blood flow. The blood's flowing to the follicle, the blood has all the nutrients the follicle needs, and the blood flow keeps the follicle strong and healthy and producing strong, healthy hair. So, in a nutshell, that's really what it is on a simplest basis. If you never did anything for your hair and the body's just going as it's going, the blood's constantly being delivered to the follicle, delivering it all the nutrients it needs to continue its growth cycle. And then, but the problem is sometimes when people start losing their hair, is that blood flow to the follicle gets blocked, and that's where the issue
Mm.
is.
And have you been able to discover, I mean, there are probably multiple, but the kind of the root cause of that, is it the blood flow? Is
Mhm.
it nutrition? I'm sure it's a combination of factors, but I'd love to hear more about what you've
Yeah,
discovered actually causes that lack of blood flow.
yeah. It's here's so in 98% of the cases, it's something called DHT. Now, the actual term is dihydrotestosterone, but everyone calls it DHT. If you Google hair loss, you'll see DHT, DHT, DHT. Now, what that is specifically is when your body breaks down the male hormone testosterone, it creates a byproduct, and that byproduct is DHT. And that's just excreted through the body. It's not necessarily a big deal. However, what happens is when it passes by the hair follicle, it gets stuck in a little pothole on the follicle. Now, when people say hair loss is genetic, what's actually genetic are these potholes. This is an inherited trait. So you can inherit, tons of these potholes. But if your body's producing very little testosterone, you're going to be producing very little DHT, which means that the amount of time it takes for enough DHT to actually stop the blood flow is going to be very long. So you might not see hair loss till very late in life. Or you can inherit very little of these potholes on the follicle and produce tons and tons of testosterone, which means you have tons of DHT, and then you're still going to have hair loss, even though maybe like no one else in your family has hair loss, but you might still have it because you're producing more testosterone than other people in your family. So it's those little potholes that are the determining factor. Now, what happens is when the DHT gets stuck in the potholes, over time, as more and more DHT gets stuck, it starts to cut the blood flow off to the follicle. So, in
Mm.
doing that, less and less blood is delivered to the follicle, and the follicle gets weaker and thinner, and then eventually dies. And
Very
and a
interesting.
dead follicle is when somebody is totally bald, like just shiny, shiny bald. That means the follicle has died.
So, okay, I have two follow-up questions around this.
Yeah.
So, I think people hear testosterone and they automatically think of it as a male hormone, but it's actually
Right.
really very important for women as well.
Hmm.
So it might seem like since women have naturally lower testosterone, that they might not deal with this problem as much. And that certainly seems to be the case. Women do still have hair loss, but not to the same degree that maybe men do from having higher testosterone. Is that pretty accurate?
That's very accurate. That's the reason why women will experience hair loss later in life or during menopause or during hormonal fluctuations or times of great stress because the balance of their hormones is just in flux. So a woman may have inherited a bunch of these little potholes on the follicle, but I mean, potholes is not scientific, but it's a great, easy visual. You know what I mean? Um,
Right.
so they would may have inherited a bunch of these little potholes, but because they're not producing a lot of testosterone, they're not seeing, hair loss in their 20s or 30s. It takes till their 40s, 50s, 60s before they start to experience hair loss. But it is when the body breaks down that reproductive hormone that we all have. Because women, it actually it's not just in women. It's not just testosterone. There's other reproductive hormones that when they break down, they can produce DHT as well.
Okay, interesting. And the second follow up question, and this is actually in relation to I've been experiencing this myself lately, which is
Hmm.
obviously one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on the show.
Yeah.
But got went to a dermatologist, had it checked
Hmm.
out, and this was the explanation. And I find this to be such a poor explanation. So I would just love your insight on this. But
Sure.
she said that sometimes your hair follicles just get tired and they quit working as well. And now, when I was thinking about the way that you described the follicle over time going to the completely dead phase, is there a way once the follicle is dead, or say it's just tired, if that's even a thing, is
Okay.
there a
Yeah.
way to wake them back up again?
Okay. So it's just to keep it positive. In terms of what your dermatologist is saying, what I would maybe interpret that as, there is a dormant phase. I wouldn't use tired necessarily. I don't think I wouldn't use that phrase, but there is a dormant phase. So when the follicle, but it's different because a dormant phase may look like your follicle's dead. You may see scalp, you may have shiny baldness there, but before the follicle actually dies, it does stop producing hair because lazy implies that it'll come back. Lazy implies
Mhm.
like, oh, I'm just taking a break till the movie's over and then I'll go exercise, or something like that. But but a dormant follicle is a phase before the follicle actually dies. I haven't found anything conclusive in terms of how long a follicle lays dormant. I've seen everything from, 6 months to 6 years. I haven't really found
Mm.
a conclusive, like, this is what a dormant follicle is. But once the follicle dies, then there's nothing can be done. A dead follicle is just dead. It can't be revived.
Okay, good to know. So maybe some of these therapies that we're going to talk about next, I mean, I don't know if there's any actual controlled studies of this, but there's certainly plenty of anecdotal evidence at the very least that certain things that maybe stimulate blood flow
Mhm.
to your scalp, for example, can help with hair loss and obviously hair growth, kind of both ends of the spectrum there.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I remember reading that you had run into something with acupuncture and some herbal therapies. Can you share more about that?
Um, I didn't. I didn't, but I can talk about it.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So in terms of like the idea of stimulating blood flow to the follicle, that's correct. You want to do that. That's a good thing. Um, by all accounts, that's a good thing. However, if the DHT is blocking that blood flow, it's still not going to get to the follicle. Like the goal should be to get the DHT off the follicle. Like that's our goal.
Mm,
That's our approach because once you get the DHT off the follicle, then the blood can start flowing back to the follicle on its own. Because otherwise, you're going to be forcing the blood to the follicle, which may or may not work, but you're still forcing it, which means whatever you're doing that's forcing the blood, you are now dependent on, which is why some like a minoxidil does that. If it's a vasodilator that forces blood to the follicle. So if you do see results, it's because you're forcing the blood back to the follicle. But the second you stop, it's the drug that's doing it, or it's that external cause that's doing it. It's not your body. So the second you stop doing that, you lose all results. So it's correct, you want the blood flowing to the follicle, but you really got to get that DHT off the follicle so it can just start flowing on its own, and then your body's functioning the way it's meant to function, and it just keeps going.
Yeah, that makes more sense because that's what we always try to find out here is like root cause. And so if the
Right.
root cause is the DHT doing these external kind of blood flow things are really just a band-aid on the situation. It's not taking care of the root cause, which is the DHT.
Well, it's the DHT on the follicle because I know there's also very popular DHT blockers that people take. Um, I don't support that, because I don't believe you should be altering your hormone levels. I believe our bodies are made are I mean, we've had so much evolution and growth and millions of years of our bodies developing that I think every little thing that you change affects another thing in the body. It's all related. So I don't believe in altering hormones at all. So what we do is we just get that DHT to come off the follicle, and then we protect the follicle so future DHT can't build up on it. And then so the DHT is still in your system doing whatever else is doing with your body, you know, but it's not suffocating the follicle. And then the blood's
That
flowing
makes
back to the
sense.
follicle. Yeah.
And so that's what you found. You said, so when you did find something that worked for your dad, and it was kind of a preparation from Italy. But then once you
Yeah.
started to dig into more, you said you want amazing. And I love that because
Right.
it was
Right.
effective, but it wasn't perfect. So what took the, what were you able to find that kind of took it to that next level?
Okay, so basically what we started doing was we started just researching medical journals. Like once we understood the problem. So the thing is that the majority of the products that were being used for thinning hair were all made in the 70s. And those were the same like popular, drug products and prescriptions. I mean, it's all over the counter now. But that was all this it's all the same stuff that's being used today. So when we started researching this, we're like, science did not go to sleep in 1970 in the researching of thinning hair. That just didn't happen. But why is everything being used the same products? Just repackaged, rebranded, but it's the same products. So we started just researching medical journals. We're like, what's happening? So we start researching medical journals around the world and being like, what's happening in laboratory studies? What tests are being done? What's happening out there? And we started finding really exciting things with peptide complexes, amino acids, with stem cells, probiotics, all these incredible things. We're getting these results in laboratory studies, but they weren't in any products. So we found a bunch of studies that we were like, these are incredible. These are incredible natural ingredients that will have no adverse effects in the body, but are getting amazing, amazing results. And so we found a lab here in California, and we're like, listen, that specializes in this kind of field. And we're like, we have all these studies. We want to make a product that has all of these ingredients in it at the clinical strengths that are getting the results, and we want to combine it all into one product. Is that even possible in a topical form? And and it took a few years, but then we figured out how to do it. And then moving forward, that's been our approach with all our products we developed. Like, what's this? What do we want to achieve? What's the problem that's stopping us from achieving that? And then what are the newest innovations out there that are handling that problem? And that's how we've moved forward with everything since then. So we moved everything to California. So now I make everything here in the US. They're all ours. Um, but that was our approach. So now what we do is we're getting the DHT off the follicle. Primarily, we're doing it with a very, very high grade hyaluronic acid, which is found in your joints and your eyeballs and stuff. And a lot of face creams have it. It's very moisturizing. It's a little kind of slippery. We're using a very high concentration of it. And what that does is it coats the follicle and allows the DHT to slide off. We also have things like there's like zinc and and manganese and stuff that kind of help dissolve. There's also things that like will help dissolve DHT, but that's the main thing because it gets it to slide off the follicle. And then we get the blood flowing back to the follicle, and then we just start bombarding it with stem cells, probiotics, amino acids. So we're rebuilding it from the bottom, and we're also rebuilding it from the top. Because what we found previous is that we were able to get the DHT off the follicle and the blood flowing back to the follicle, but the hair wasn't coming back strong enough and fast enough. And what we realized was that there was so much damage because a lot of people wait 15, 20, 30 years before taking any action. So there was a lot of damage, and the follicle needed help. The hair needed help coming back. It needed help rebuilding faster and stronger. So that's where the introduction of the stem cells and the peptide complexes all came in, is because we get the blood flowing back to it, but then we're also helping fortify fortify the rejuvenation as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. And now that you've sort of figured out that combination, what kind of results are you seeing? I mean, do you mostly test these things on yourself? Do you do lab testing? How do you find out like what's being the most effective for the products?
Yeah, well, what we do is so everything we pick, I mean, that's a good question because we actually haven't done any. I haven't done any like official double blind studies where you send it off and they do the whole thing. That's coming up. But what we do is we find the products that are getting the results in all the lab studies because they do all that. They do all the studies and stuff, and then the actual individual ingredients are getting the results, and then we put them all in a single product, and we're very, very meticulous that it has to be at the same strength that is getting the results. And then it's just photos, customers, because we know in theory that the products are going to work. That's at least with the first one. Now we're pretty confident that it works. But with the first release, which we started making in 2013 and actually released in 2016, by the time we released it, we had enough people using it before it was officially released that we knew like this concept is gonna get results, is gonna make a serious change. And then now, as of now, we just have a bunch of pictures. We have a bunch of pictures, we have testimonials, and all our pictures are clients who send it in. We don't actually do the pictures ourselves. So that's really how we have been tracking the success and the progress and the success rate. I will get around to doing the official like double blind stuff.
Yeah, but what you said makes a lot of sense to me because whenever I have something going on in my health, it's one of those things where you want to do one thing so you kind of know what works, but I take the other approach. I read all the the research on it, and whatever if I find 5 things that work, I'm going to be doing all 5 personally. So
I know,
I
me
like the
too,
way
me
that you
too.
approach that.
That's kind of how, like, I've always been the type of person that like when you make like a shake in the morning, like you just kind of open the fridge and you put everything in. Like I don't want just spinach. I think I want spinach, garlic, ginger. Oh, look, there's some kale. There's a carrot. That probably blends up okay. Throw it all in. So it's like that's kind of the same approach that I take to making our products. Throw it all in.
But they're backed obviously by research. You found these
Yeah.
things by like going through PubMed and everything, and so ingredients like that. And then I think the other thing that you said that is really important is you do it in the strength that's been shown to work in the study, because
Right.
quite often people will get onto a particular ingredient, say hyaluronic acid, for example,
Yeah.
and then it'll just have it on the packaging, but it doesn't mean that it's in an amount that's actually going to cause any changes or be effective. So
Mhm.
I like the fact that you're like going with the clinical strength. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's so important because you only have to have a minuscule amount of something to be able to put it on on your label and
Right.
promote it as, hey, it contains this, it contains that. But I want to change people's lives. I mean I know it says hair loss, and I know we're just it's a cosmetic thing, but I really want to make a difference. I want to have an impact. And and a way that I can do that is to make sure that It's really helping people with their self-confidence and their self-esteem and their ability to feel confident that they can make choices and decisions and get results. And so that I feel there's a responsibility there to help that, because I know when someone feels confident in a decision that they made and they see a positive result, they feel confident that they can go out and like make more decisions and get more positive results. And you know and it matters how you look, not in a vain way. People, I say that, and like, no one should be a jerk. You know what I mean? Because when you say vain, people think like, oh, jerk. Like, no one should be a jerk. But like when you put on like a great jacket or like a beautiful dress, you're like, oh yeah, today's the day. It's happening today. Versus when you are just eating chips and sweat clothes that you've been wearing all weekend, you're like, maybe I'll take a nap. And that's just the physical affecting the mental. So it is subjective, but they do play off each other, and when you feel confident and good, when you look at yourself in the mirror and you feel like, yeah, I look good, you walk out differently, you present differently, you communicate to people differently. So that's why I think it's so important, is that you, the individual, feel great about how you look. And you shouldn't have to think about your body. You shouldn't have to think about your hair, because if you have attention on your body, if you have attention on your hair, if you have attention on the way you look, that's attention that you're not putting out into the world. And when you put that attention out into the world, you get that attention back and you create, strength and power and positivity, and you uplift. But if you're going out and you got 30% of your attention on yourself, you're going to hunch down a little bit. You might not look someone in the eye. You might not give that random stranger that smile that's going to make their day better. There's a difference there. So it's important for me that this is a way that I can help, that I've found at this point that I can contribute. And so that's why it's important that the products actually have an effect, a positive change.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. There's so much psychology to, I always say, look better, feel better, because it's that same thing. And a
Yeah.
lot of people really experience this in a huge way during the pandemic because they're no longer going to the office. They're no longer
Mhm.
getting dressed for work. They may not shower for a couple of days.
Right.
And all of that really so strongly contributes to depression. So, same thing when your hair is causing you stress. Like you said, it's taking your attention away from being in the present moment and being able to be, you know, fully shining your light in the world. So, I really love that that is your goal because, again, it's not just about vanity. It's, taking care of yourself in a certain way and feeling good in your own skin, whatever that is for you,
Absolutely.
whether it's your hair, your weight.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter if you're technically overweight, underweight. It's like you've got to feel a certain way about yourself just to be
Totally.
present and doing good work in the world. So
Yeah.
I
And
really
and
appreciate that.
and you can be bald too. This isn't about having hair or not having hair. This is about you
Right.
feeling great about yourself. So if you shave your head and you're bald, or you're thinning and have a bald spot, but you feel great about it and you love it and you love the way you look, then that's awesome and that's great and that's correct. But if you have something that's taking your attention units and is making you retract just a little bit from the world, let's fix that and get over that and then get you back out strong, focused.
Yeah. Love that. Are there, as we come to the sort of the end here, are there
Yeah,
any new products that you have coming up or things that you're particularly excited about that you're working on lately? If
we
it's
do.
anything that you can share, I mean, not to
No,
give away any
absolutely.
secrets or anything.
No, no, we actually just released a new product this week that is, it's I love it. I love it because so one of the things we found is that when somebody's hair is thinning, or damaged or weak, this can be from like styling or dyes or anything like that. When the hair is weakened or damaged, any kind of non-optimum scalp condition is going to impede healthy growth. It just is when the hair is damaged, it's harder for it to grow if your scalp is in a non-optimum condition. Now, in current environment, there's a lot of toxins in the world. There's a lot of toxins,
Mm.
there's a lot of pollutants, there's hard water, there's cleaning chemicals, there's residue from styling products, from old shampoos. There's just dirt and soot in the air, and all this stuff accumulates on the scalp and starts clogging up the pores. And it just does. And it gets to the point where shampooing doesn't help. Now, when you start clogging up the pores and start clogging up the follicle, not only is the hair difficult to grow, but it also can lead to inflammation, which can lead to other issues such as like itchiness, flakiness, dryness, sores, scabs, all kinds of non-optimum things that most people don't want on their head. So we released it's a scalp exfoliator. It's called the Accelerator, and what it is, the goal is to clean the the pores and clean the follicles of the scalp so that not only can healthy hair exist, so you're creating like a fertile ground for strong growth, but you're also handling the scalp. You're also rebalancing the pH of the scalp in terms of getting all that excess buildup off the scalp so the scalp can be a strong supportive environment for your hair. And it's great. It's just something you use in the shower a couple times a week before shampooing, massage it in. And there's so many, I mean, amazing. It's amazing. There's so many incredible ingredients in it. I mean, we got zinc, copper, ashwagandha root, blueberry. We use ground olive seeds. Everything's all natural. There's tons of botanical extracts, vegetable extracts. It's pretty exciting in terms of like what it actually can do for the hair and the scalp. There's caffeine for blood flow. There's all these great things, and it also will completely condition your hair too. It's a great leave-in conditioner as well.
Sounds
But
amazing.
yeah,
Like you should have
we just
recorded
released
that as
that.
a
Yeah, we just we
that's
just we
awesome.
just we just released it. I'm very excited about it. It's brand new. We've been working on it for a very long time in terms of like getting it to the point we feel really good about it.
Awesome. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
and if people want to learn more about what you do or learn more about the products, are you active on social? Can you just share with people what's the best way to get in touch and where they can find you?
Yeah, the best way is to just go to our website, morehairnaturally.com. Now, here's the thing though. On our website, people can go and they can buy whatever they want, and that's great. A lot of people just read it, they get an idea like, oh, I need this, I need that. But the truth is that when the hair's damaged, it's not a quick fix. It's not something like it's not going to take a week, it's not going to take a month. It's a good 3 to 6 months before people really see a
Mm.
change because the goal is to handle the follicle so it can start to grow its own hair again and not have you dependent on something. And there's a certain healing process that has to occur. So some people see results very early, some people much later, but there is a little process there. So a lot of people go to the website and they just order from there. But then also on every page of the website, on the top and bottom, I have a phone number. And people can call and get a free consultation. And they'll talk to
Oh.
someone who's trained in hair, and
Mm.
basically the goal is two things. One is to discover the root cause of your thinning and then sort of explain to you what that is so you understand the the problem so you can better define what your solution will be. And then from there, we'll offer you our products. If we think we can help you, we will offer your products, but also we'll give you other suggestions. Like maybe it's a diet change. Maybe it's
Mm.
just a momentary, like maybe there's something in your life that momentarily just like kicked you into an excessive shedding phase and it will pass. Maybe it's something else, but our goal there is to help people feel confident about whatever choice they make going forward, whatever action they decide to take, they feel confident about it. So we do recommend that people call if they'd like to. It's free. I have a team that's just what they do is that it's just a support team to help people, you know, feel good about whatever choice they make and know that they can make a choice and to sort of encourage an action, be it with us or somebody else, but just encourage an action because it's all about action. It's all about, people can research their life away with no results, and that's the hard thing because hair loss doesn't get better on its own. So like there's the research factor, but sometimes people use research as an excuse not to act. So we want to get people to act in whatever
Yes.
capacity.
And like you said, the longer you wait, I mean, this has been happening to me for a few years. It just recently got
Right.
worse, probably because, like you said, a stressful event. We moved about 6 months ago, but
Uh-huh.
I mean, you don't want to wait. It just mine is just keep getting worse over the years. And it's like, I
Right.
should have probably more actively sought some kind of solution prior to now. So I am really appreciative that you are out there in the
Yeah.
world educating and doing this work and offering something that can really help people get out of this cycle and sounds like attack the root cause. So thank you so much for sharing all that with us today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.